Coming up, Renmen versus Lnguagehackr. The quarterfinals.
There's only one more spot in the World Championship from the fall season available, and it's going to be between Lnguagehackr or Renmen. Who is going to take this spot and continue to fight on for the title of the fall champion? I'm Frodan, joined by Brian Kibler, and this is the last quarterfinal that we have in store for you guys.
It is, and while these two players may be among the lesser known coming into this event, both of them have put up very strong performance so far in this tournament, and either will be a deserving member of the World Championship.
All right, let's go ahead and meet our last two players fighting for a top 4 spot. The first, a specialist in the Cube Warlock and representing Russia, please welcome to his stage the always cool Renmen.
His future's so bright he's gotta wear shades, hoping to follow in the footsteps of world champion Pavel from Russia.
And his opponent from Canada, please welcome to the stage Lnguagehackr.
Similarly looking to follow in a strong line of Canadian World Championship representatives, Lnguagehackr is hoping to make his way to the World Championship.
Я не знаю, у меня много разных чувств, и я не могу сказать это. Это не опишешь словами.
It comes down to game number 5 on whether or not either of these players are going to the quarterfinals or falling to the lower decider match.
Да, что-то пошло не по плану, и мне повезло, что я сейчас сижу здесь, а не Тайлер. Я так думаю.
Lot of dinosaurs, but they are just going to be spectators to Renmen's victory as he wins a nail-biter of a match against Tyler.
I think the turning point was somewhere, well, it was Rexar. When you draw it with the synergy cards, it's literally explosive.
And in one of the quickest best of 5s that we've seen this weekend, Lnguagehackr's going to take it down and move on to the top 8.
I'm really excited after my 2 wins today. I don't want to get ahead of myself just yet. I have knocked it up one more on the winnings ladder, but there's one more important win to get before I can celebrate. I don't know too much about Renmen. I've seen how he's finished, like in tournaments, but I haven't actually seen him play out matches except for earlier in this championship. But I anticipate it'll be a close set. I'm hoping to beat out Renmen, secure my spot in the World Championships, and then maybe even win the Fall Championship.
Думал победить.
Coming up, Renmen versus Lnguagehackr.
To be quite the exciting match here because there's only one spot left, but there's also a couple of bigger storylines perhaps than even the players. Obviously, their own journey to the World Championship would be fantastic. To become the fall champion after travel so far is great. But there's also no Europeans so far that's qualified for the top 4, and we've always really had them. And Renmen's the last line of defense. On the other side, 3 Americas players make it to the top 8, and they all might go through if Lnguagehackr is able to take this one.
And that would be kind of a mirror of last season, where we saw 3 European players who made it through. And now, Europe on the verge of being shut out of the fall season if Renmen does not win this match.
All right, well, here you have the lineups: Taunt, Druid, Death Rattle, Hunter, Odd Rogue, Shudderwock, Shaman, Anti-Control, but of course Lnguagehackr mixing it with that Odd Rogue. And speaking of Anti-Control, Renmen has some of the greediest lineup that you'll see, with Malygos and Togwaggle to fatigue their opponents, with a Cube Warlock making that Renaissance performance in the group stage that we saw.
Yeah, we saw Renmen's Malygos Togwaggle Druid in particular come up pretty big yesterday in his match against Tyler, where Tyler was able to assemble this combo, but Renmen had the tools to just run him out of resources and then use the Azalina Soul Thief to just gas himself up entirely.
That's right. We've had the pleasure of casting both these guys throughout the group stages, and now it all comes down to this last best of 5 single elimination. We'll go into game number 1 here with Death Rattle Hunter versus Cube Warlock. Now, again, there's not too much data out there on Cube Warlock, so when we tell you what's favored or unfavored, it kind of really depends. And also, Renmen techs his deck a little bit different, as he puts Ziliax in literally everything that he has. I guess except for maybe Quest Rogue, unless he has it, I'm missing it.
No, he does not.
Yeah, okay. So Ziliax in almost every deck, and he says he loves that card. And Death Rattle Hunter doesn't actually have as much of an edge compared to some of the other slower Warlock decks that you would hope that the Hunter can get set up. And I think it's because the Cube Warlock actually has an aggressive aggressive game plan compared to some other decks from Warlock that have to build a board before attacking.
That's true, but also the Hunter deck is less powerful at pushing through Void Lords late in the game. It's very good at dealing with removal effects and decks that are trying to go toe-to-toe with just killing its minions, because obviously with Devilsaur Egg and Cube, it's hard to keep up with everything. But if you put a Void Lord in the way of everything the Hunter has, it's much harder for them to get their damage through.
Yep, Devilsaur Egg is going to be one of those key cards for Lnguagehackr to build that board aggression early, but Renmen starting to see the little fruits of his labor, you know, having that Mountain Giant package that a lot of people were playing towards the end of the Kobold / beginning of Witchwood meta, and still keeping it in so that way he can bust open the game early on if the Mountain Giant goes unchecked. Yeah,
Renmen has said that this Cube Warlock deck is his favorite deck, and you know, he has had some pretty powerful performances with it so far. Going up against a powerful opening, though, from Lnguagehackr here, the Cube for the Devilsaur Egg has to be a little scary. It usually indicates your opponent has Terror Scale Stalker, and here I think Renmen, may even consider trying to preempt that with the Doomsayer to stop Lnguagehackr from being able to develop even more. Though there is always the threat that he just drops another egg, and you get 2 5/5s in play.
Yeah, the Kobold Librarian, an interesting pickup here for Renmen, because while it is great to draw a card and develop, you don't necessarily know if you want to save this for, say, a Spellstone, which we saw Renmen do earlier in the tournament, or increase his options as the game goes on. But I think because it keeps his draw very even with the Mountain Giant pacing, there's no harm in playing it right now.
Lnguagehackr does end up just making 1 dinosaur, no Terror Scale Stalker to further his board. And now the Giant, this is bigger than anything that Lnguagehackr has in play. He does have the option of using Flanking Strike plus his Devilsaur to kill the Giant, and it's always got to be scary. A Giant out of Cube Warlock is much different than a Giant out of Even Warlock. Even Warlock gets their Giants down faster, but they're less threatening because there aren't, say, cubes to potentially give you that much more power from that Giant. And here, Lnguagehackr has the Defender of Argus, which will protect him, but now this Giant can attack into the 6/6 dinosaur and potentially get cubed.
This is something that I want to ask you about. What about taunting only the egg and then hitting with the 5/5 Devilsaur? Yeah, it's still vulnerable to perhaps the Spellstone that gets upgraded by the Kobold Librarian, but then you're able to protect that dinosaur if your opponent doesn't have the optimal removal, and you can keep pushing damage.
I think that, particularly given the presence of Cube in Renmen's hand, that play would have worked out much better for Lnguagehackr. He would have pushed a little bit less damage, but wouldn't have had his large minion vulnerable and would have been able to preempt Renmen's strongest play. Right. It's one of the things that often is extremely important when you're playing against a deck that is capable of swing turns such as Cube Warlock, that not only do you need to advance your own game plan, but need to anticipate what they can do on their turn and try to make that as awkward as possible.
I do appreciate the Defender of Argus tech, though. That's not very common. You see Death Rattle Hunter, and if you're trying to survive against the early game aggressive decks, which Lnguagehackr might be facing in this tournament, I think it's a good inclusion. But now he's stuck in a position where that cube is very problematic. He does have some really good removal tools in the form of Houndmaster Shaw and Spider Bomb, and being able to combo that. We've seen Carnivorous Cube even introduce complicated board states because they can activate the Spider Bomb as well.
Yeah, Lnguagehackr, he's in a position where he kind of needs to push damage, and he's playing a deck. Yeah, I like this cube here. He's playing a deck that is not burst focused like many Hunter decks are. There's no kill commands in his deck, so in order to actually finish the game, he needs to push as much minion damage as possible, as quickly as possible. And now Renmen, I think, is going to be looking, okay, is there a way for me to try and set up perhaps a Defile to clear off much of this board and potentially break open the cube and spawn some more Giants?
Well, if he breaks open his own cube, he has to be careful not to overextend into what the board can, his opponent's cube can create. But it's only just some eggs, so it'll be 0/3s that come on the other side.
Right, that's the thing. And Renmen has a Prince Taldaram too. He can Taldaram his cube here, and then if he's able to break open, I think that's what we're going to see. That's going to be a lot of Giants that will be available to Renmen if he's able to set up a way to take advantage of this.
Oh my gosh, you're right. It'll be 4 to 8 or 8 8s depending on how much damage they take.
If he attacks into the Devilsaur and casts the Defile, he's not able to break up everything. There's no 2, but it will clear off the 5/5 and leave him with 2 8/8s plus the cube that gives him 2 more.
It's more of the threat of what potentially can come out of that cube. And Lnguagehackr picks up a play dead. So Spider Bomb does have targets it can hit, but there's so many targets you want to hit. And he also has mind control tech. So these are some options that Lnguagehackr have at his disposal. But he also might just die if he's not careful.
Yeah, this is definitely a tough spot, facing down 2 8/8s. And yeah, he does have Houndmaster Shaw plus that Spider Bomb, but he's a mana short of being able to actually fire it off. Definitely going through all the possible permutations. He could just use Flanking Strike, attack his cube, kill off one of these, but that leaves him in a position where, you know, he's playing defense, and as you're saying, he needs to be the one who's pressuring to end the game, because Renmen gets to the long game, starts playing Void Lords. Lnguagehackr doesn't have silence effects in his deck. He has no way to push through those 3/9 taunts and the Void Walkers that come out of them.
Yeah, I really like having a really nice Houndmaster Shaw and 3 mana play next turn, the Mind Control tech.
He could go for Mind Control tech here. He could break the cube and MC tech. Okay, he's just gonna go for one. All right.
Yeah, the problem is that that only deals with 1 giant.
Right, it's true, and he can potentially just die.
Yeah, there's 24 damage onto the board. So I actually like this as a 2 out of 3 chance that you'll be able to hit one of the giants.
If he actually had 1 more mana, being able to break a giant, break the cube, MC tech a giant, then Spider Bomb play dead, could end up working out, but...
Or Houndmaster Shaw Mind Control tech, because then the giant that you steal will be able to trade into 1. So I think that's what Lnguagehackr is setting himself up for. And then Renmen on the other side, by the way, he's at 5 health.
Yes.
So any minion that sticks on the board is extremely threatening for almost the rest of the game. And because Cube Warlock has suffered so much, you know, life def, like they're not as good at healing compared to how they were in the past. Therefore, this is a pretty serious game-ending condition here for Renmen.
It is.
He can't heal.
Yeah, he can go ahead and kill both the cube and the Defender of Argus and leave up just Spider Bomb, which means he does not die on board because the cube only puts 0 health minions in play. But he's still very low. He needs to find himself a way to heal, or else just the cube.
Right.
Okay, he's gonna kill the cube, or rather the Spider Bomb. Yeah.
He's hoping that maybe land on a lackey.
All right, yeah, so rather killing the Spider Bomb here does leave him with no Void Lord. He was going for the out, exactly, of trying to blow up that lackey and put himself in a position to have a taunt here.
So Lnguagehackr, he is staring at 18 damage on the board. And if his opponent is able to get out a Doomguard and hit and potentially combo that in some capacity, let's say another Doomguard, he might die. So let's say, you know, Renmen Dark Packs his lackey, summons Doomguard, plays a Doomguard from hand, that's 28 damage.
Right. Yeah, it's definitely a tough spot here. I think in Lnguagehackr's position, he feels like in order for his opponent to be able to actually get to that stage, he'd need, like, say, another cube in Dark Pact, and would have to hit a Doomguard off the lackey.
Right.
And needs to actually have something to kill the lackey. Like, if the lackey doesn't go face, he doesn't have that damage, so that's not actually a viable option for him.
Right.
From Lnguagehackr's perspective, he can just go face and hero power, and that means Renmen has to heal or he's dead. A Void Lord will not do it.
He can't Hellfire to crack open his own minion.
Yeah, there's no tap available. He has to have a healing effect. And that's none of the cards that Renmen has right now do any kind of healing. He's at 1 life. If he does hit a Doomguard off of this lackey, he has to trade it into something. And then he could play Doomguard, but he's 2 damage off lethal.
It's 2 damage off lethal.
There's the Doomguard.
Doomguard, but he's just he doesn't have enough life to Hellfire or do anything else.
Right, he could, if he had 1 more mana, he could go for the draw. He could Doomguard the face, both, and Hellfire to get a draw game, which is something we rarely see in Hearthstone. But we're just gonna see the, well, almost there. 2 damage off, and look at the sigh of relief from Lnguagehackr. He knows how close that game was, and he manages to pull it out.
Yeah,
1 game lead to the Canadian player.
He almost potentially threw away a really good opportunity to win this game because he held onto his mind control tech to have a little bit more greedy options with Houndmaster Shaw, plus the Spider Bomb to address the immediate threat. So not necessarily a bad play, because he would have taken 8 damage if he didn't do that, but the payoff was that he was able to put a little bit more pressure because of it and as a result, Lnguagehackr just barely gets over the hump. That was very tense, Kibler.
It was excellent recognition of his role in the matchup. He understood, okay, well, I can't let this get to the late turns of the game because if my opponent starts playing Void Lords, yes, I have things like King Crush that I can get out, but that doesn't do anything when your opponent just has so many taunts in the way.
Yeah, and it didn't even escalate to the point where we're expecting Void Lords or cube combos to really drive the game, or Katharina plus the Hunter's cube combos. So it ended up just being kind of a mid-range pressure tempo game. And in the end, Lnguagehackr gets a very good game number 1 lead here as we go into a break. Don't go anywhere. More action when we come back to the Fall Championship right after this.
Hi, my name's Mihai Dragolin. I go by the tag Lnguagehackr. I'm from Toronto, Ontario, Canada. Throughout the season, there were times that I wasn't sure that I was going to qualify. Every time you have the playoffs, there's a huge field of very good players, and it's very difficult to be consistently the best among the best. It's really tough going into the matches and thinking, hey, like, you can just get through this one and the next one and the next one, and eventually you do have to get through 7 or 8 or 9 to actually get all the way to the championships. So I was definitely concerned that at some point along the way I would falter. My friends actually recommended it to me. I remember when the beta came out, they were telling me that there was this new card game, and they had historically played similar games in the past, especially in the Blizzard universe with World of Warcraft, which I played a lot of. So seeing all those ideas and cool characters come into Hearthstone was a really fun time for me. It was nice seeing that entire universe somewhere else and in a new kind of format that I haven't played before. My friends and family, luckily, are all supportive of what I'm doing. They weren't really familiar with the scene or how esports is kind of progressing. So when they saw that I was traveling and competing and doing all this stuff, they were a little skeptical at first, but they've learned a lot about it and think it's an interesting opportunity. I want to prove that I'm one of the best players. I want to be up there with the greats. I want to be able to feel proud of what I'm doing and say, hey, yeah, I made it to championships. Hey, yeah, I want championships.
I've also been informed that you are a former Spelling Bee champion. Is that correct?
I actually was not a Spelling Bee champion. I placed 3rd.
Can I throw a spelling challenge at you real quick?
Go for it.
Mecha'thun, Ziliax, and Flabidinous Flute.
FLOBBIDINOUS space FLOOP. Ziliax is ZILLIAX. And Mecha'thun is MECHA''THUN. Were those right?
Correct.
Excellent.
Меня зовут Роман, и я из России. Что удалось понять, узнать нового? Много всего открылось. Я начал путешествовать. Как минимум, я попал в Америку и уже участвовал в некоторых соревнованиях, кроме того, что попал сейчас, сюда. Это ХГГ.
Going to give it up. He understands that that's the last push. The Renmen was going to need it. Look at the relief. Yeah, a wipe of the brow. He knows how much that moment needed.
Я как-то рассчитывал все время на себя и не думал, что проиграю. Не думал о поражении. Как минимум, это путешествие, плюс само по себе общение тоже очень интересно, общаться с людьми, я считаю, и, путешествовать в большей степени. Что я учусь на ихтиолога. Я воспроизвожу рыбу, например, как это можно сказать. Я ловлю золотую рыбу в Хардстоуне и выращиваю ее. Так, как бы это сказать? То, что... Goldfish, как называется? Golden Fish. Золотая рыбка, то я ловлю Goldfish в Хардстоуне и воспроизвожу золотую рыбку. Потому что они не темные, это просто насадка, и я прекрасно без нее ее вижу. То есть... Вот.
Welcome back, everybody, from the Blizzard Arena in Los Angeles, California. Hope you guys got a second to get to know Renmen and Lnguagehackr a little bit better. Lnguagehackr, of course, supposed to be his username after being able to spell really well, so he's like a language hacker. And Renmen's real name is Roman, so it's kind of like a play on that. Plus, apparently, he's a goldfish breeder for his studies.
I just don't even know what to say.
Yeah, that's one of those things where you just kind of, when someone tells you, you're like, cool. Another round? I'm going to go get us some more drinks. But, you know, it's actually fairly interesting seeing like how all these people who come from Europe are like in these advanced studies. You know, Bunny Hopper last season,
right?
You know, studying his PhD thesis, came 9th in the follow-up season. But enough about that. Let's talk about the cards that have opened up here for game number 2. And Lnguagehackr, wow.
Yeah, that is about the best hand you can hope for in Lnguagehackr's position. Wild Growth, Nourish, Master Oakhart, and the coin. That is an explosive opening in a match that Renmen doesn't have that many ways to put that much pressure on.
Right. You know, because Possessed Lackey comes out a turn slower, so your pressure gets delayed for a little bit, which gives Taunt Druid more time to set up. And that clock is accelerated by the fact that Wild Growth and Nourish are both in the hand of Lnguagehackr and Master Oakhart. Now, there are ways for Renmen to still clear the board to set things up, but it's just a lot trickier when your opponent's, you know, slamming dragons as early as turn 5.
And Lnguagehackr recognizes how this curve plays out. Does not want to coin Nourish, wants to Nourish next turn, and then save the coin to bust out the Master Oakhart. Just decides to punch down the Librarian.
And because Lnguagehackr picked up his Dragonhatcher, has to be careful. I mean, not that he has much agency in it, but he wants to avoid drawing the second Dragonhatcher for fear of pulling out a lot less threatening minions.
Yeah, this is 7 mana for Lnguagehackr, which means 8 next turn, plus the coin. That's gonna be Master Oakhart time. Renmen decides to try and slow down the development here a little bit with a Doomsayer. Can do the same this turn, so he can prevent Lnguagehackr from having that coin Oakhart.
It's true. Coin Oakhart is not as threatening, but Lnguagehackr could also just still pass. He's not under real pressure to try and to get board presence.
One of the interesting things here for Lnguagehackr is that he does have branching paths available and can draw, but as you mentioned, he already has a Dragonhatcher's hand. If he were to branching paths and draw his second copy of Dragonhatcher, that massively neutralizes the power spike of Master Oakhart. So despite having cards available for him to play and the mana to play them, I think there'd be a very good chance that Lnguagehackr does just decide to hero power and pass this turn. He could also potentially want to just play a Primordial Drake, get that card out of his hand, get the big top minion into the pool. Yeah, it looks like he is just going to go ahead. All right, I'm going to punch you in the face. Decides to hold off in the branching path, does not want to risk making Master Oakhart less of a threat.
Yeah, it doesn't really accomplish too much by investing into the pool this early. You're not even sure if you're going to pull Hadronox for a while, because Master Oakhart might just get the Ironwood Golem instead. Yeah, Hadronox does make an appearance.
Crucially, there are no silence effects in Renmen's deck. He does not play Spellbreaker. He does not play an Ironwood Owl to go with his Prince Daldram, but this does make the Hadronox guaranteed.
Yeah. There is a Godfrey clear, just available on the board right now. There's a 2, a 4, a 5, 6 in the Master Oakhart, and then a 7, 8. Let's see what's pulled out here. Doomguard. And there is the Dark Pack and the Carnivorous Cube.
Yes. And Renmen, in order to try and win this game, may be looking to try and get as many dead Doomguards as possible so he can get a big res with Gul'dan. However, he's still at 7 mana. You know, he's still in a position where he is going to have to do a lot of work to deal with Lnguagehackr's board and then some. You know, not only is this board already a problem, but Hadronox is on the board, Dragonhatcher's on the board. There's more to come.
Yeah, but if he does Cube and Dark Pack, he can eliminate the Dragonhatcher. And also have some pretty meaningful board presence too. I mean, there's still an intimidating amount of power on the board, and Lnguagehackr might trade off as opposed to be aggressive.
Yeah, and this does allow him to clear off the Dragonhatcher so that there's, at least to his knowledge, no additional dragons coming down from that, but there's a second Dragon Hatcher in Lnguagehackr's hand.
Right.
So he can ensure that the dragon train continues.
Yeah, there's only one more dragon in the deck remaining anyways, in the Sleepy Dragon, as the second copy of Primordial Drake and the first copy are in his hand respectively. He does have the option of also utilizing the coin in this position to remove a little bit more of the board. Like he could coin Wrath the 5/3 and push 8 damage. And again, Q-Block's not a deck that you have to worry about their life total. They don't have any hooked Reaver to punish you.
Right. Yeah, and frankly, Renmen is the one who needs to be worried about his life total because these taunts, they may be small at first, but they add up as they get more of them on the board as Dragon Hatcher continues to bring in its brethren, and also branching paths that we mentioned was in Lnguagehackr's hand. He held on to it. It can help push a lot of damage when your board gets big.
I like it. And this is nice too by Lnguagehackr to protect his life total on the Hadronox, because the sooner Hadronox dies, the less value the first wave of taunts become. There's right now currently only a Primordial Drake that has died for Lnguagehackr, so losing the Hadronox, even though he has a Witching Hour, would still be pretty painful.
Renmen gonna try and stay afloat here. He's gonna heal himself up, kill that Dragon Hatcher. He doesn't know that Dragon Hatcher was out of dragons, and it looked a lot more threatening than it is in reality.
Also important to note that Lnguagehackr only has one Witching Hour, so he doesn't have as many reloads. Another point to why he wants to keep the Hadronox as healthy as possible. That being said, I mean, Renmen is getting closer to having the ideal setup with Blood Reaver Gul'dan and pushing out Doom Guards. And if Renmen's also going to lose the board, I mean, tossing in the Void Lord into the mix isn't a bad option either. Because it seems like he's not going to get through. Oh.
Yeah,
Maybe think about
he wants to set up to be able to have a powerful Gul'dan, I believe.
Yeah.
Ooh, Cube. Right now, there's not that many dead taunts. I believe it is one Primordial Drake. And these two dragons. Is that actually it?
I mean, right now...
I think it's just the Drake, right?
Yeah. There's just a Drake, but Lnguagehackr can just keep investing into it. And because there's no silence, like having a cube, Hadronox isn't the worst case scenario here whatsoever.
Just gonna go pump it up. No, gonna draw a card. All right, digging.
One thing that's also important to consider might also be the fatigue scenario. We have seen some players opt for Blood Reaver Gul'dan and then just go for a very slow game plan. This was a long time ago when the Witchwood meta was first coming out and Tondru was making an appearance. And I wonder if because Lnguagehackr has that naturalized, feels okay to extend deeper into his deck, but it is something to consider as this game continues to trudge along.
Well, second Void Lord drawn for Renmen here.
Right.
These are defending him quite well, and it potentially gives him a more powerful options in his res pool. If he were to Gul'dan right now, he would actually he would get the 3 Doom Guards. Assuming he trades off his Shroom Brewer here, he would get, I believe, 3 Doom Guards, the Void Lord, and the 3 Void Walkers.
Right.
If he does play the Void Lord, he has the potential of getting the Void Lord from the res, but he also cuts down the possibility of actually getting the Doom Guards back as well. I think he just needs to defend himself and give himself a stronger opportunity to actually get survivability here.
Yeah, I like also this hold on the Cold-Blooded Librarian for the reasons we mentioned. I mean, Lnguagehackr still has another naturalized in his deck, so when it comes down to it, assuming no cards are burned on Lnguagehackr's side, he's still going to be 1 ahead of Renmen into fatigue, but that Blood Reaver Gul'dan might be the big MVP because Taunt Druids don't play any 6 or 7 mana cards, generally speaking, so they don't have the Malfurion competitor. Huh.
Well, he does. Just Q-Boy the head.
Okay, so this Lnguagehackr, on the other hand, speaking of like trying to play a deny game, doesn't want to play his Ironwood Golems necessarily because he doesn't want too many in the pool. He wants like higher quality minions that can't die to a Defile or a Lord Godfrey as easily.
Yeah, the big card that Lnguagehackr would love to see is Lich King, because Lich King makes every res effect from your Hadronox that much more powerful.
Right.
And Lnguagehackr does need to be concerned about the possibility of Godfrey. Godfrey is by far the scariest card.
Oh.
All right.
There.
Faceless is interesting because you can Faceless the cube that has Hadronoxes, or
How about something another level deeper, Kibler? Spear Singer Umbra and Faceless Manipulator?
Spear Singer, that is...
That's probably a little bit too much.
Well...
I mean, the problem is that you activate those Hydronox, which has a chance of summoning back those Voidwalkers anyway.
Right.
And then those Voidwalkers stack on itself because Blood Reaver Gul'dan will have another chance to summon those Voidwalkers
you end up with a powerful effect of getting back potentially your Void Lords and potentially these Voidwalkers, but you do dilute your pool for your Gul'dan res significantly.
Unless it's Zeliax in the pool. I mean, these are all like really funny combos, and that's why some people love Cube Warlock. Is this a Godfrey setup? No, it's just a Bug Player.
All right, well, here it is. We know what's coming back. Actually, no, we don't, because of the Void Lords. So it could be a mix of Void Walkers. Hoping to see Doom Guards and Void Lords.
Okay.
That's
about the average result.
Yeah, that's about what you would expect.
Yep. 3 Doom Guards, 2 Void Lords, and 6 Void Walkers. So it's we'll call it about even, the average expected result. I would actually like him to not kill anything. Oh, yes. Okay, so again, the Ironwood Golem, you know, Renmen says, I don't want to put this in, or I don't want to actually put damage onto my the Doom Guard right here. And then Lnguagehackr, of course, doesn't want his Ironwood Golem to go in the pool. It's a very nice board tension setup here.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, there is that second Golem in his hand, which I expect Lnguagehackr may be trying to avoid playing. But now that Gul'dan is down, you know, the fatigue possibilities are very real. We mentioned there's only the one Witching Hour available to Lnguagehackr, so there was fewer potential huge boards that Renmen will need to be able to deal with.
Yeah.
And you know, this one he's kind of dealing with just having a huge board of his own.
Exactly. And yes, we are 9 turns away, assuming they draw 1 card per turn. Not going to be the case, but we are still several turns away from getting to that fatigue stage. But this is where a lot of those unusual uses of cards are going to come into play. Like having both Ironwood Golems in the hand or on the board is great for Oaken Summons, because that way you don't have to pull it out of your deck, and you can just gain that armor if it comes down to the damage difference of fatigue.
All right, well, Lnguagehackr is chipping away at this board. Debating, does he want to Spellstone something? Looks like he's gonna, just fire off the Oaken Summons and Hero Power. Missed the Hero Power, spent a little bit too long on that turn.
Missed 1 life.
Well, now Renmen picks up a Defile. This is where the math gets complicated. He's got Lord Godfrey and Defile, trying to figure out what he can do to pick apart this board and hopefully clear up as much as he can.
Right.
There are 2 Hadrodoxes hiding under that cube. Is there a way for him to just keep the chain going? Probably not.
Yeah, this is also smart from Lnguagehackr, because part of the downside of cubing your Hadronox, and this is like one of the very few, is that if your opponent, is able to pop the cube, you can make it so that they only summon 1. Oh, here we go.
He's doing it.
The combo we were talking about.
Yes. Faceless, 2 Hadronoxes for Renmen now. And those are going to give him some taunts. What does he get? Just a couple of Voidwalkers. That's the most likely thing by far. But now, I mean, there are 2 Hadronoxes on Renmen's side of the board, and those are just going to give him repeated full boards himself.
Yeah, look at me. I'm the taunt.
Yeah. This happens to me when I'm playing like Espionage Rogue or like, you know, some sort of Thought Steal Priest. Usually not in Warlock versus Druid.
Yeah, I mean, this still hasn't ensured Renmen victory, because there's still the Lnguagehackr's giant wall of taunts.
Yeah. And here comes 2 Hadronoxes for him. We've got Spider versus Spider. Getting a sense of arachnophobia right now in this game. It isn't even just these 2 Hadronoxes. There's 2 more in the cube.
Oh, you're right.
It's spiders all the way down.
Yeah, that's right. If you guys missed Venom, you can get a little
like a
sneak
creepy,
peek
crawly feeling looking at this board. This is just uncomfortable for me.
So many bloody decisions.
I think this is more
Gul'dan's not lying.
entertaining.
There are so many decisions here.
Well, I was going to say this is probably more entertaining than watching Venom.
I didn't see it.
All right, well, I won't spoil anything for you.
Just look at this board.
Yeah, so like the thing is, I think we're in rather uncharted territory, so we're going to learn along with you guys who are watching what's actually going to be a good play versus what could be more shaky.
Just gets a bunch of Voidwalkers off this one, and that's the risk. There's so many Voidwalkers in the pool that these Hadronoxes are very likely to give him a bunch of 1/3s.
Yeah, these Hadronoxes feel just like Voidlords without taunt. They're like 3 attacks, a lot of health.
But at some point, he's going to get Void Lords off of these Hadronoxes Hadronoxes as well. Well, this is one of the things
That's
so...
called the gambler's fallacy. Eventually you'll get it, right? The probability that
I
actually
would
starts
say
working against you.
the odds that he will get at least one. One. I'm not saying a board full of them. I'm saying one.
I mean, the more Voidwalkers that die,
It's true. It's true.
less likely that happens.
Is he killing his own Hadronox here, it looks
Yes.
like? Yep.
But he also does strand the other Hadronox, so Renmen can kill that 3-4 Hadronox remaining and make it one less wave. And this is part of that downside we were talking about by cubing your Hadronox. That's still a very impressive board, to say the least.
Yeah, and we see Renmen. He actually only has a lesser stone, but he does have the hero power available, so he can pop Hadronox number 2, I guess number 3 in the overall matchup. This is one of the things that's so great about competitive Hearthstone is when you have environments like this, game states like this that happen that you've just never seen before. You have to work it out on the fly. That's I think what makes a lot of these players so impressive is when they're able to calculate, okay, well, what happens when you have 5 Hadronoxes versus 3 Hadronox and whatever. It's just never come up before.
Very, very subtle advertisement of Kibler's stream where he encounters these kinds of games on a daily basis.
Is he trying to set up a defile here?
I think so, because he wants to pop that Hadronox.
Right.
He doesn't have a good way to do it without the Cobalt and Spellstone, but he draws deeper into Fatigue, which is what he doesn't want to do.
Right. Well, he could just Spellstone it now because he hero powered it. He brought it to 1, which is setting up a defile here so far. But there's
also a Godfrey possibility.
There's always a Godfrey possibility. There's no 4, but there will be things coming out of. Yeah. Well, he doesn't have much time. He's got to go. He's going to play something.
I mean, he had a 2. He has a 1, 2, 3, and then the Voidwalkers add a little bit of extra help too.
Well, we're all going to see what happens here.
Hey, a Voidlord came out.
Huh? Told ya.
You were right.
Well, now Lnguagehackr can kill that Hadronox that only gets 1 minion. Because that's stranded on a board of a bunch of small minions.
Yes. That's all I can add to this conversation, Kibler. I don't.
Yes.
So for Lnguagehackr,
that will in fact happen.
We want to note that he has one more wave of Hadronox left with the Witching Hour.
Yes.
But
he does have a second cube in his deck as well.
Exactly. So I was like,
That's
if he can wait for the cube, he can get
is he
2 more
drawing?
waves.
Whoa. This is. He has a cube just at the very next card. There's the Lich King. He would have loved to have had that earlier. Whoa. Drawing with the Nourish here is risky because it means that Lnguagehackr is way behind in Fatigue. He does potentially need to try to fight to win before Fatigue simply because he's fighting against Gul'dan. He may not have the ability to actually compete once he gets to that stage. Yeah, he's going to just go ahead and bust open all of the Death Rattle minions and March of the Dragons. Going to kick out a bunch of Voidwalkers.
So he's pushing the timetable up. He's saying, I'm going to accelerate both of our Fatigue, but the real reason why is because he wants to keep this board to threaten with Branching Paths. He says, if you can't deal with this now, if you don't have Godfrey, if you don't have some kind of AoE clear, I mean, that's in Lnguagehackr's mind, that's a pretty good burn. Hellfire would have done great on this board.
It would. And frankly, just it's a resource that Renmen doesn't have. And in this type of game, any resource you deny from your opponent with an overdraw like that can be a really big deal.
And also you see the fruits of Lnguagehackr's labor. Not investing into that Ironwood Golem means that almost his entire board is just the dragons that he wanted.
Interestingly, Renmen can hero power plus Godfrey here, I believe, and actually clear everything. It looks like he can create a 1, and then there's no, there's no 2. He can't make a 1 and a 2 and a 5. No, he can.
Yeah, hero power the 4/5. Actually,
right.
No, you're right.
There's actually no ability to set it up. So he does play the Librarian to try to give himself the 1. Now he can 2, 3, 5. Yeah, everything will die.
I think he needs to Godfrey here.
Godfrey.
Yeah.
But this Godfrey is his most important AoE clear resource, and that means that he is in a much worse shape to deal with the Witching Hour cube.
Yeah, and I think that's what Lnguagehackr was going for, by just pushing up the gameplay. Instead of just trying to drag it out, he says, I'm much more comfortable letting you do this, and then forcing a tempo play, essentially, just like being able to be 1 step ahead of his opponent.
Absolutely. And I think Lnguagehackr recognized that he needs to put Renmen in a position where he is unable to just keep pressing with his own sort of proactive plan that he had adapted thanks to the copy on the Hadronox. So now he has a Tal'Daram for that cube.
He has a Tal'Daram for the cube. And he
But-
pop. He can. He can. He can Prince Tal'Daram, Hero Power it, and then Dark Pact.
We can Tal'Daram. He has his own. You can actually.
Or you can just cube it,
Tal'Daram
too.
the cube. Hit the cube if he wants. He's got all these options. But the thing is,
Yeah.
he's just bringing back a bunch of mostly garbage. You know, he's mostly bringing back Voidwalkers. He needs to get a bunch of Void Lords here somehow in order to have a good shot. Yeah, he's gonna go ahead and cube one of these Hadronoxes.
Well, I mean, maybe not necessarily have to have the Void.
Two Void Lords. Way above expectation,
No,
Gordon.
I think that's actually potentially really big because
It is.
Renmen can play the stall game now.
Right.
Because the minions on the board won't really die for a while. And if Renmen can find one final way to clear the board and make it all awkward for Lnguagehackr to get some board presence, maybe ends up becoming a fatigue game.
He's gonna try.
Emphasis on the maybe.
I mean, this is clearly a very sticky board with a cube on Hadronox and a Hadronox on this side. And, you know, Renmen clearly has the ability to keep generating these taunts, but Lnguagehackr needs to try and press through with damage. And, you know, he's playing Taunt Druid. He needs to do that with minions. There's no direct damage outside of that swipe in his hand, and maybe something that comes off of a Lich King.
Okay, so...
And yeah, now he can take down that cube as well.
Right.
Which means that there's no additional wave. Or rather, just one additional wave.
And then this will... this will
picks
actually...
it apart. This is the last push Lnguagehackr has available now.
Exactly.
And that is the worst option.
Oh, man.
With
And he
the
wanted
tree.
412. And now he pops the Hadronox. Oh, he wants to pop the cube before the Hadronox to get
he
more.
wants to have even more waves of taunts.
This is ridiculous. Just watching Renmen stall and hold on for dear life against the onslaught of the Dragon Army.
This is, like we said, spiders all the way down. 30 life for Renmen. Lnguagehackr has to push through all of it, and he is deeper in fatigue. And he has a much worse hero power.
But, I mean, Lnguagehackr also has the Lich King.
He does have the Lich King. He does have the Lich King, and that can provide a lot of power. But Renmen still has cards in his hand that are very impactful. He has Doomguard. He has Ziliax.
Dragons of the Frozen Throne! Great expansion, by the way. Oh, it's the Frozen Wastes.
Get it right.
Yeah. I'll leave the Dragon Connoisseuring to you. But the important thing with the Lich King being on board,
it gives a way for Renmen to just attack and pop a Hadronox.
Right. So now he can also just use his mana to develop Mountain Giant behind that. Although I think he might want to just play as many taunts as possible, given the fact that, you know, there's 7 minions with big attack on the board.
Yeah.
Precision. Perfection.
So he's gonna kill the Lich King here by attacking with the Ziliax and then perhaps both of the Hadronoxes? Or perhaps Hadronox and then Hero Power.
Man, imagine if Lnguagehackr got the...
Yeah, gonna Hadronox Hero Power.
Yeah, got some ability to, like, Frostmourne and steal another 100. Oh, man, this game is nuts.
This is outrageous. And then
How does he keep getting the Void Lord back?
Well,
that's what I want to know. And Renmen should not attack with his Hadronox because he should know a swipe remains in the deck, which he needs one more wave of taunts after this Hadronox.
And the Void Lord is obviously crucial here because it means that there's, you know, multiple blockers against Lnguagehackr's Dragon Onslaught here.
Now.
Oh boy.
I concede.
Lnguagehackr concedes! Renmen survives Dragon Wave after Dragon Wave and is able to tie up the series. That is some great Hearthstone.
I think that was definitively the craziest game that we've seen all weekend. You know, the Warlock winning with like the 6th Hadronox or whatever it was. That is not something you see every day.
Yeah, and I mean, there was enough taunts there to declare both of them, you know, cheat, considering he has so many taunts just got in the way of stopping the attacks. And you were talking about, like, man, all this garbage is in the taunt pool, but it was just enough to stall because Lnguagehackr, he accelerated the game. He kind of did this to himself. He drew that Nourish to try to push the pace because he felt like if I could checkmate him with the Godfrey being played, maybe I could push. But perhaps that Tal'Daram combo threw him off.
It's interesting because, you know, Lnguagehackr was trying to preserve his own Hadronox, wanted to ensure that he had backup against board clears, but that gave Renmen access to copy it multiple times, and that was really what let him stay alive.
And you can see, you know, Lnguagehackr after the game, he conceded. I mean, he didn't even let it play out, right? Sometimes you think it, but we kind of know what would happen. He would stall out, maybe the hero power would whittle him down, and more importantly, there were still more threats in Renmen's hand. There was only a swipe and an Iron Golem remaining in the Druid's hand.
Yeah. Lnguagehackr was totally out of threats other than what he had on the board, and Renmen still had gas and, crucially, the Gul'dan hero power. Even if Lnguagehackr was able to chip away a little bit at a time, that was getting healed up by the Siphon Life.
Exactly. Lnguagehackr can just kind of mulling over what should have happened or what could have happened. And Renmen, I mean, you get to show why he loves Cube Warlock and why he considered it his favorite deck. I mean, you could just see the experience and the composure, because I got to be honest, I really thought he was dead for several turns.
Maybe he's clearly played through that exact situation 40 times, right?
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, when Mountain Giants are in the top bottom 10 coverage of the deck, you have to find another way to win.
But that is one of the most important things in terms of the experience players have with particular archetypes, is that you run into certain strange situations and can understand, okay, well, this is what's important here. You know, if my opponent is playing Taunt Druid and, you know, we set up this sort of grindy type situation, I can copy their Hadronox and grind them out.
Yeah, Renmen, not the biggest name to come from the European region for this season, but after that game, I should show you why he qualified and why he deserves to be here. We're going to find out what happens in Game 3 when we return to the HCT Fall Championship. Hope you guys enjoyed some of those glimpses around the tavern. We are knee-deep in the final quarterfinal that we have here in Renmen versus Lnguagehackr. That was an excellent game number 2. I highly recommend you guys go back to watch. For me, game of the tournament, Kibler approved. Even people on social media are kind of talking about it right now, and I think a lot of people are wondering, did Lnguagehackr concede even a little bit too early there, given his frustration of what happened towards the end stage of the game?
I mean, that could have potentially played out different. I feel like there wasn't much he could actually do. Assuming Renmen played the game, correctly from there, it's possible he could have obliterated the Hadronox and got himself into a spot where he didn't run out of stuff. But you have to go back and really analyze this because it was clearly a game with a lot of complicated decisions.
Right.
But now, got to get into the next one. There's Lnguagehackr again on the Druid, Renmen now with the Death Rattle Hunter.
And the reason why I bring up that is because perhaps that could just be a crack in the mental armor from Lnguagehackr. With this much at stake, it's not just, of course, elimination, but it's a World Championship berth, it's the Fall Championship. You want to force your opponent to guarantee 100% victory as opposed to 99 or even lower.
Yeah, I mean, frankly, though, maybe Lnguagehackr is feeling like, okay, I am getting demoralized playing this from this position, and maybe it's worse for my mental state if we keep going, and I don't think I can win.
It's true. We have seen people who just feel like, they want to continue the series as opposed to play this game and sit in their own mistakes or their own regrets.
It's like, oh god, this is horrible. Why am I doing this myself? But I mean, frankly, Lnguagehackr, admittedly, did not feel like he played terribly well on the first day. He actually, until that game, had not lost a game since day 2. He got swept in his very first match, but then had back-to-back sweeps coming through the elimination and decider matches. So, perhaps he is, trying to ensure that his own mental state is up there. Lnguagehackr doesn't have the wild growth, but has the nourish in hand. But Houndmaster Shah is pretty ugly to see on the board here. He's just going to go ahead, doesn't want to Oaken Summons into it because that runs the risk of his opponent attacking and getting the value out of the rush. Whereas if he just kills this over 2 turns, say with this swipe and then Nourish Wrath, there's no power to Houndmaster Shah's ability. Ooh. The King Crush in your tracking is never something you want to see in this kind of matchup because King Crush is pretty important to being able to power through your opponent's big minions. Actually, especially against a Hunter's Mark. Often late in the game, you want to be cubing King Crushes and play deading the cubes to try and punch through all of the large taunts. At Hunter's Mark, though, very key card if you're able to actually have an aggressive way of pushing your opponent down. But now, Renmen, he will not have access to King Crush for the rest of this match. Rather this game, at least.
Sure.
I'll get back in next game, maybe.
and what a weird world it is that currently in this day and age, King Crush is the most played classic legendary card over Tyrion, and Ramesh.
That's awesome.
And, Cenarius and Draxus, like all these classic heroes that we've come to expect. Of all of them, it's King Crush. That's the most common, the most powerful.
That's actually fantastic. I'm very happy about that statistic. Ooh, Master Oakheart again. And I do want to remind everyone that Lnguagehackr last game had that Wild Growth into Nourish into Master Oakheart draw.
Oh yeah.
That he lost with. Renmen crucially was able to hold him off with the Doomsayers out of the Cube Warlock, just from a tempo perspective being so powerful. Now Renmen deciding, all right, well, I am playing tempo here.
Yeah, this is probably why this is a tough matchup for the Taunt Druids because of Spider Bomb. Spider Bomb can just get through your really fat minions. Master Oakheart is great. And it's like, man, another one?
Oh, Hunter's Mark number 2 here.
Are you kidding me? Double Hunter's Mark.
There's the
that's
Candle Shot as well.
Yeah, the Candle Shot and the Hunter's Mark absolutely happening. It's all about how Renmen wants to map out the rest of his mana. Does he want a flanking strike to get an easy trade on the Ironwood Golem? How does he set up the trades there? Does he even go for a full clear, or rather he just goes aggressive to pressure the life total?
The most important thing is getting rid of that Dragon Hatcher because you don't want more dragons coming down. Looks like he's going to go ahead and gets Master Oakheart, which is fine. Yeah, because there's still the possibility here, just flanking strike into a value trade with the cube. Still room for Prince Keliseth too.
Right. I think that was actually Renman's one of his better outcomes, if not the best, because then he doesn't have to waste his minion trades into a 5/5, considering he has such an easy clear on the Ironwood Golem.
Well, there's a Sleepy Dragon available for Lnguagehackr if he wants, but there is another Hunter's Mark for Renmen. Lnguagehackr does still have 20 health, so he's not in terrible territory if this does just go down to Hunter's Mark Candle Shot here.
I wonder.
Oh, look how focused Lnguagehackr is. Has that opportunity.
Laser beam eyes right there, activating them with the fingers on the temples.
He's saying, what's the worst case scenario if I play Sleepy Dragon? He's already lost that Spider Bomb. What about Hunter's Mark number 2? Should I just go for the Hadronox play now? And looks like he's leaning towards Hadronox.
Hadronox here is interesting because it is something that, you know, okay, do you have a way to kill my big minion? That doesn't really matter. It's a Hadronox. You can get the damage through anyway, but I'm just trying to ensure that I'm able to get this cubed up. You know, the fact that next turn he can cube this and then branching paths to get his armor up to get out of range of any kind of burst damage, plus get a big taunt wall, I think is a big part of this motivation. So while he may, you know, well, many may have leaned toward playing the Sleepy Dragon, increase the value of your Hadronox. This is the last opportunity you have to really like pay your 9 mana and not possibly die.
Right. And also it's the turn before the King Crush, right? Which would have gotten the big damage. Even Oaken summons.
Yep. Oh, there is still the Iron with Gold in the deck too. So yeah, building an even bigger taunt wall up here. Kathrena, that's a powerful draw, but there's only the Grizzlies left in the deck for Renmen, I believe.
I mean, it's kind of its own Sleepy Dragon. So
it's a little more woke dragon. It's got.
It needed a little bit of help from the whatever magic from Prince Kelseth.
And Lnguagehackr doesn't know that King Crush is gone. Renmen does, but Lnguagehackr still needs to be afraid of the possibility of that giant dinosaur coming out and really ruining his day.
Renmen's out of cards though. So as long as Lnguagehackr can survive this onslaught and Renmen does not draw Deathstalker Rexar, Lnguagehackr is going to ride this wave of taunt minions all the way home because he has branching paths to close out.
Primordial Drake here does let him get his cube killed if he wants, which gets the Hadronox in play already. And he could go ahead and attack the cube in and then naturalize one of the Hadronoxes to generate a big board, which looks to be what he is doing. So now Renmen is facing a huge wall of taunts again. That is his out. That is Deathstalker Rexar. He can try and build himself some crazy beasts.
He is sad though that he drew the Witchwood Grizzly.
Yes,
so it's
last beast.
It's a good and a bad draw at the same time. He also has to worry if he's gonna die. I mean, this is just a lot of minion presence. The 2 damage from the Deathstalker Rexar though is not trivial. That should help him clear off most of the, at least some of the board, not most of it. Both 100 marks have been used though.
Yeah, Renmen is out really, with the exception of 1 Spider Bomb, of ways to actually kill these big taunts.
Yeah.
He's already used both copies of Hunter's Mark. Yeah, it's gonna be Rexar time. Time to start building beasts. And what Renmen is really looking for is Poisonous Bloatbat or Cave Hydra plus the Vile Blue Skitterer, things that have poison and an immediate impact to be able to kill large minions. That's none of them right now. I actually kind of like taking Nightmare Amalgam right now because it turns on the possibility of a rushing Scale Worm in future turns.
I like that too. I mean, the Vicious Fledgling is clearly not going to hit the opponent's face anytime soon.
Yeah, obviously it just has better stats per mana, but it's actually quite relevant if you enable a Scale Worm that otherwise wouldn't be able to have Rush.
$10 damage on the board. As it looks like there was the Stubborn Gastropod taken in tandem with the Nightmare Amalgam.
And again, Lnguagehackr does not know that Kathrena is empty in terms of beasts she may summon, so he's going to navigate around the possibility of what could come out of her Death Rattle.
Witching Hour, a nice pickup too for Lnguagehackr, so you can revive the Hadronox if the worst case scenario happens of the Poisonous Bloatbat.
He doesn't have a way to immediately enable popping it, but often you'll want to keep your Hadronox alive just in case your opponent does have, say, Poisonous Bloatbat or Cave Hydra Poisonous, because if your Hadronox dies, well, immediately you get another wave of taunts.
Well, it's fine anyways. Lnguagehackr can just trade off. Oh, well, I was thinking about trading. I was thinking about if you just want to set up another board with Hadronox right now. Oh, he was waiting to see if another Grizzly would come.
You wanted to see, okay, well, do you get a Grizzly? And now the most likely explanation for Lnguagehackr is that you have King Crush in your hand. So here he's going to try to create a dangerous board that can push for lethal next turn against Renmen, potentially. Gets a bunch of Iron Golems.
Yeah.
But 7 minions, all with at least 3 attack, is still very scary, especially with Branching Paths in the hand. So he's going to be going. That's none of the key minions here.
Yeah, Razor Maw is nice for the Adath possibilities, and Hunting Mastiff gives Renmen the ability to play 2 of them in a single turn.
Does potentially take down 1 taunt, but with Branching Paths in Lnguagehackr's hand to pump this board, even if he does lose 2 minions, I don't really think there's much of a chance for him to survive. Looks like it may be just going for Grizzly here. Tracking.
I think he's going for the bomb.
Spider Bomb. Okay, he can Spider Bomb into Terra Scale Stalker and kill one thing.
And die.
Yeah. Not looking so hot for Renmen here.
Might have to be this plus Candle Shot. And this will absorb 10 damage.
Yeah, the double branching passes here. There's 5 minions get through with at least 5 attack, and that is going to be lethal there. Renmen concedes, and now Lnguagehackr is just 1 game away from the World Championship.
Massive victory here for Lnguagehackr. Taunt Druid versus the Death Rattle Hunter is one of his worst matchups. But, I mean, he still has to worry about Shudderwock Shaman. That deck still can struggle a lot against some of these pressure decks like Death Rattle Hunter or even the Malygos Druid. So, Lnguagehackr getting the Taunt Druid out of the way, definitely a sigh of relief. But, I mean, Renmen's going to hang in there, and he looks like he's still very well in tune with his deck and lineup, even though he's been taking those early losses. Yeah, and we saw the Q block get through for Renmen. That is his favorite deck. That's the deck with which he is probably the most comfortable. But the Shudderwock Shaman from Lnguagehackr, as you mentioned, can struggle with the decks he has remaining. Oh, man. I mean, and you have to kind of, like, look at the fact that both of those games for Taunt Druid, they really need that Master O card to swing the board state. And without that, I mean, he still was maybe 1 or 2 turn ways from losing that board potentially if the Deathstalker Rex are paired together that poisonous combo. So that's also, despite the fact that he drew really well both those games, still lost one and almost lost a second.
Yeah, I feel like it's not really fair to say he almost lost that last game. I think that he was in pretty firm control for most of it, but there was the chance that it could slip away from him. That's true.
Sure.
I must protect.
All right, well, it will be the Malygos Togwaggle Druid for Renmen. Ooh, Lnguagehackr with Hemet in his opening hand. That is pretty huge because that can accelerate the possibility of him assembling his combo much, much faster than Renmen will generally be able to get his.
Yeah, it's a classic version of the Shudderwock Shaman. People were so heavy and all in on the Shudderwock combo possibilities that they want to destroy every card that was 3 or less they could get. Life Drinker, Serenite Chain Gang, and Grumble.
Lnguagehackr with the keep on the Hemet means that we can have a quick game in our hand. Renmen, though, also with Twig of the World Tree, has the ability to set up for some power turns himself if he finds a little bit of ramp.
Yeah, that's a lot of potential explosion from both these players, but I think without Wild Growth, that's just going to make it a little bit harder for Renmen right now.
Mana Totem, get a little bit of card draw for Lnguagehackr, and Renmen doesn't have the easy clear of it. So it's going to actually get multiple cards for Lnguagehackr and still demand removal from Renmen, which is a pretty bad scenario in a battle of combo decks.
Look at the speed at which both these guys are playing, too. I mean, Lnguagehackr has such a clear vision on what he wants to do, and Renmen doesn't have much else he can do.
Well, the swipe draw for Renmen here does give him an answer to the Mana Tide Totem. You know, that could decelerate Lnguagehackr's ability to assemble his combo. Renmen, though, deep in thought. There's sometimes the corner case scenarios that you can try and glut their hands so they can't effectively use their combo, but we may be a bit far off from that potential here. Yeah, Renmen getting ready. I think that totem's dead.
I would think so too, because the way that you lose this game is when your opponent is able to disassemble the Shudderwock combo. You have more than enough damage in your deck to go over the top of even beyond 30 life. So yeah, they can heal and stall, but this Coin Hemet, you can see the disappointment in Renmen's face.
Yep, that just happened. We see it, 10 cards are burned from Lnguagehackr's deck. And not in the bad way, not like the oops, there goes my Shudderwock way. This is, okay, I'm that much closer to that Shudderwock.
Oh.
Speak of the devil.
Still takes a little bit of time to assemble the pieces, and there is that ultimate chance of Lnguagehackr just misfiring with a Shudderwock, and then Renmen goes for a clear on all of them.
I expect we will see Zola on, Zola on the Glacial Shard. Interesting. I was going to expect that we'd see Zola on the Chain Gang, because Zola on the Chain Gang helps ensure that you, over time, have enough ability. But there is the Twig that he's potentially looking to try to keep as shut down as possible.
This is interesting. You know, I haven't seen too many people focus on freezing the twig compared to trying to get their game plan developed.
Right.
So this is Lnguagehackr taking a different route than most people would.
He's also taking a very aggressive route, using the Earth Shock to go through both of these taunts and just pushing damage to the face. Renmen's at 16, but Mind Control Tech, all right, takes that Glacial Shard there. Branching paths.
He's getting ready for attack.
I think he might fight for the board here, yeah.
He's like, you know what? I don't want to take too much more damage. I have to actually remove the board. Plus, Grumble would be really scary if my opponent got both those minions back.
It's a Volcano, so Renmen did just commit a lot to building up this board. Could decide to clear it all off.
Yeah, there's no Storm in the deck anymore for Lnguagehackr.
The only cards remaining in Lnguagehackr's deck, they are Hexes, they are Life Drinkers, Hagatha, Grumble, and Volcano.
13 health on the board, freeze the face. This is really annoying for Renmen, but he knew this was coming. Still 2 turns away, but 7 cards remain in Lnguagehackr's deck. Ferocious Howl can
He's
start
only played a single copy of Serenade Chain Gang so far, so there is the possibility that even if Lnguagehackr assembles his entire combo, ooh, that Wild Growth, that means next turn is Ultimate Infestation time.
Potentially a big pickup here for Renmen.
But those freeze effects, keeping that twig under control, does mean that Lnguagehackr, he has a window here. Life Drinker's the draw.
Right. And, I mean, because he's invested more into Glacial Shards, Shudderwock can just keep freezing the face.
It's true.
Maybe he does go for the Temple route there.
Well, Infestation takes down that Life Drinker, draws Renmen a fistful of cards, and he is no longer frozen. He gets a swing this turn.
Yeah.
That's potentially a really big turn next turn as well.
Oh my.
Togwaggle.
We forgot to talk about the King Togwaggle as Alena portion of Redmen's deck. It's dishonest to just say it's just a Malygos.
He's just going for the Shudderwock?
He wants to freeze the face.
All right. Oh, Chain Gang, that means he does get the Zola. That was a 50-50. Does he get another Shudderwock? And he does. Freezes the face as well.
I mean...
And now 2 7/7s on the board too.
This is scary just by the board presence.
And Lnguagehackr, you know, he was in a position where it's like looking like his opponent was going to have a power play. He did not have his full combo, but he calculated, all right, well, I think I'm in a better position here to go for this, maybe shut down my opponent's combo and give myself at least a shot of my Shudderwock copying itself.
And because Shudderwocks most likely won't die from what we see right now, Lnguagehackr gets another Zola.
Right, if Renmen can't clear both of these Shudderwocks, Lnguagehackr just goes again. And that means that, you know, he's not infinite yet, but he does have the ability to just keep going each turn.
Oh, this got even dicier because he drew another minion, so Dream Petal Florist has a 1 in 3 now to hit Malygos. Oh, that hurts. That hurts if you're Renmen.
It does.
I mean, he wanted that life gain, but now it is even more unreliable whether or not he can get Malygos down.
Or Togwaggle.
And also keep in mind, Malygos swipe does 6 damage, Jerry.
It does.
Not 7. Attack to the face. Hits a Malygos!
All right, well.
Grumble is drawn. Is that just
Dear,
lethal?
it might be. He
think
has
it
2
is.
Shudderwocks in play, 14 to the face. Now Grumble, that's Shudderwock City. 4 mana left over for Life Drinker after Life Drinker after Life Drinker. And that's it.
Lnguagehackr is going to take this series, and his alternative routes with the Glacial Shard is going to pay off in spades.
It's all over but the animations.
Ooh, sitting back. Cool as a cucumber, and the headsets are coming off. Lnguagehackr is going to deal the final points of damage and join us for the World Championship.
Look at the relief on his face as he clinched that game and his berth on Hearthstone's biggest stage. Renmen fought hard, but in the end, Lnguagehackr ruled the day.
Congratulations, the last European has fallen and 3 Americas players. None bigger the moment than right now with Lnguagehackr being the final player to advance to the semifinals. Congratulations.
He will continue the streak of Canada's participation in the World Championship unbroken since 2014.
That's right. And now you can see the 4 players that we have. Bloody Face from the USA, Blood Trail, who is a path that mirrors Pavel from 2016. We'll talk more about that, I'm sure, in the future. Just Saying, and of course, Canada's Lnguagehackr. Let's hear from the man himself. He's joined by Cora.
The Americas region with an incredibly dominant performance here, and Lnguagehackr will be joining Just Saying and Bloody Face, representing the Americas region at the World Championships. What's going through your head right now, man?
Jaws and something else. Claws, there we go. Just a lot of jaws and claws.
A lot of jaws and claws at the right time. When you ripped that Shudderwock with the 50-50 chance to bounce for Zola, did you think it was going to pay off?
Well, I didn't know whether it was going to pay off or not, but I knew it was the right play, and that's why I did it.
Very well spoken. Usually when I do that, it doesn't work, but clearly you're going to the World Championships, so it worked out this time. Going into that series, what was going through your head? Were you really nervous? Did you feel like your lineup was pretty solid, so you were pretty confident?
I was comfortable with my practice going in. I knew I was a little bit unfavored, so I had to take some risks, which is why you saw me just play the Shudderwock with almost nothing in the pool except for 1 Sarah and 1 Zola. But I knew what I had to do, and that's what I went in doing.
Just got to keep your head clear and do what you came here to do, and you put in the time, you put in the effort, you practiced, and now all of that hard work is paid off. But I know that some people had to help you get here, so do you have any shout-outs that you want to give, anybody you want to say thank you to?
So my real-life Hearthstone, not Hearthstone friends, like everyone I knew from high school and stuff who's been supporting me so far, all my practice groups, Optimal Gamers, Moyans, saying literally everybody, Mega Man Music helped a lot as well. There's probably like hundreds of other people, everyone who's helped me, like shout out to all you guys. Thank you so much for helping me. I'm just happy to be here.
Happy to be here, and you're going to the World Championships. Let's hear it for Lnguagehackr, our 4th and final World Championship competitor.